Hi, I'm Jim Kane for LCTV Channel 99. Join us as we take a little tour of old, ancient, and just forgotten cemeteries, mainly in the Brewster area here on the Lower Cape. I'm Jim Kane for LCTV. Join us as we take a little tour. Well, my first stop was Brewster Town Hall, where I was pretty positive, and here it is, a nice little pamphlet about the town cemeteries in Brewster. Come and see the history and beauty of our cemeteries. So we'll take a look at this map. Let me open it up for you. And sort of a old style, I don't know, turn of the century map with the highlights. Turn the Brewster Town cemeteries with a directory. So let's take a little ride around. And what initially motivated me to make this special feature film is this cemetery I stumbled across. I happened to be taking the dog out for a little ride one day and checking out some spots, and I came across the Sears Cemetery, and this is ancient and forgotten. We'll check this out. So this is in Dennis, and this is the Bound Brook Conservation Lands, town of Dennis. So this is a very pretty spot. It's not a very big area. We'll show you where a pond is. But you take a little walk up this trail, and then essentially out of nowhere on a little hill, we'll see probably one of the oldest cemeteries on the Lower Cape. I can't be positive of that, but it's essentially the Sears Family Cemetery. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Ancient stone walls. It really had to be something to see the Cape before the clear cutting, after the clear cutting, and here we are in the beginning of the 21st century, 2015. Very beautiful. Alright, so we took this very short walk, and then you pan up, and again, I'm not sure how old this cemetery is. Here I can see something on the stone written in here. That says 1881, 1720 I think it says. Practically every name, every last name is Sears. You see this sort of imagery once in a while. These are very old stones. Again, another Sears, 1769. Again, no religious connotation at all. Just ancient markers. So unreadable that they're lost to time. And humble at that. Humble markers. John Sears, inventor of salt works. Died 1817, age 72. Again, just to give you an idea of how old this place is, here lies the body of Mrs. Mercy Sears, wife of Captain Samuel Sears, who departed this life January 20th, AD 1748/49 in her 80th year of her age, passing away at 1748. Incredible. So this is essentially the Brewster Dennis town line, and probably the oldest cemetery I've ever seen, and a very special cemetery, again essentially dedicated to one family and generations of offspring, in this case the Sears family. So here we are at Red Top Cemetery on Stony Brook Road. This is not such an ancient cemetery. We'll see some flowers, remembrances of family members that have deceased. One thing I should point out is a lot of cemeteries I've noticed are affiliated with a church, meaning you have the church and then the cemetery right in the back or on the side. That doesn't necessarily seem to be the case in Brewster. I know the Unitarian Universalist Church does have that situation with the cemetery adjacent to the church, but most of these cemeteries are not affiliated with any religious body, religious church. And another thing I thought of is, while I don't know of any in Brewster itself, ancient Indian burial grounds are recognized on the Cape, and I know of a couple spots. Dennis has one, but they're few and far between, and you have to search those out. Probably an internet search, something like that, would show you where the ancient Indian burial grounds are as well. So here we are, Red Top Cemetery. We'll take a quick look around. Now in this particular case, they put a cemetery where the church used to be. Site of Reformed Methodist Church, Old Red Top, 1821 to 1867. And again, the Ellis family in this case, well represented. Again, folks born in the 1880s, 1826, 1880 itself. Even more modern stones. The Black family, Nathan and his wife Emily. Nathan passed away in 1957, Emily in 1954, born in 1865 and 1873 respectively. But again, you see more end of the 20th century representation in this cemetery. But again, you're going to go back to, right next to them is Olive May, daughter of the Black family. She was born in 1894 and passed away in 1905. Again, more members of the Sears family. They certainly all weren't interned at one specific cemetery. Again, these folks are going back to the 1870s, sometimes even earlier. So again, this is a smaller cemetery. We're right here on Setauket and Red Top Road, right there. Interesting. All, you know, it's a hill. Very pretty though, and very peaceful also. Where is the Brewster Cemetery? Located on Lower County Road in Brewster. This is essentially an active cemetery, meaning people are still being buried here. So not necessarily ancient or forgotten, but there's a lot of Cape Cod names here. So we'll take a look at this, and you'll recognize a lot of names right off the bat. In fact, at the moment I'm parked in front of the Nickerson family plot, if you will. Very impressive. Along with the Nickersons, very well represented is the Crosby family and their monument, essentially. That is a very big spire. Sort of a sundial, almost. Mr. William Crosby died January 25th, 1834. And his son, Crosby, was lost at sea November 1833, at the age of 39. Dust shall return unto dust, the spirit to God, who gave it. Bassett, another Cape name. This is a nice stone. Crosby, Foster, Sears. I mentioned this is an active cemetery. This whole row here is just open and ready to be utilized. Again, this is the Brewster Cemetery. It's a beautiful spot. Captain Isaiah Clark, September 12, 1818, January 14, 1893. At rest. A nice anchor there. And here's what you'll see too, the storyline. Margaret Fitz died 1885, age 49 and 4 months, 18 days. Interesting how they bring it right down to the specific day of death, essentially. John, son of Margaret, lost at sea, age 26. That's the real tragedy. Never to see her son again, once he went to sea perhaps, or at least for the final time. Brother, sacred to the memory of Captain John Fitz, lost at sea on his passage from Liverpool to San Francisco in the year 1881, age 26, son of John and Margaret Young Fitz. And again, the Crosby lot. This must be the tallest structure here in the Brewster Cemetery. Very impressive. Alright, so we'll drive out of the Brewster Cemetery, again on Lower County Road in Brewster. We'll take a little tour around. You're getting the vibe that you're seeing history and the people that made that history, the people that made the Cape, went to sea, in some cases never returned, some tragically young, and some folks here lived to be 90, 99 years old too. It's very fascinating. And of course the ride out. Beautiful landscape. Look at this tree. A couple of trees here. Really spectacular. So Dillingham Cemetery, and no dates for when these cemeteries were founded or built or created. And again, a small cemetery, a little bigger than a postage stamp size of land, and not a very not many people are in this cemetery. But let's take a look around. Dillingham Cemetery in Brewster, Mass. Well, at this point you're probably asking yourself, what's his fascination with cemeteries? Well, I suppose it's the fact that we all will succumb to the eternal, which is death. So how we live our lives now is what I consider to be important, to love and cherish life, because it is fleeting and goes and can be snuffed out instantly. So just to take a moment or two to pause and reflect on those that we've never even known, never met, but have lived and walked, horse and buggy perhaps, on this very road right in front of me, is really a fascinating part of human experience. Brewster has a cemetery committee that I respect what they've done with the cemeteries in Brewster. They have, and they do, keep them up, beautify them, and the fact that there's a committee in town for cemeteries is shows you Brewster has its heart in the right place and remembers its history. It's sea captain's town. History is a big part, but also the families that created this area. Another fascinating point worth probably mentioning is you'll see on traffic islands and plaques and memorials for essentially young men who gave their lives in service to this country. Many of them you'll see are privates and never really achieved a high rank because they were killed so young. We see those more often, and while we drive by them quickly and don't give them much thought, usually folks are kind enough to keep a flag there and fresh flowers and tend and garden those islands of memorial. But at the same time, there are family members that have served in the United States military that sacrificed and died at a very young age. And you can come by and remember those people too. So now we're traveling to the Brewster Memorial Cemetery. This is adjacent to Route 124. We're traveling in the direction towards Harwich, and to get here you would turn in where the Brewster police station is. Very scenic ride, headed towards the cemetery. I've never visited this cemetery before, so both you and I will get a look at it together. No dogs. And you see religious symbolism now in these more modern cemeteries. Again, I certainly hope I don't offend anybody by having their family name shown. DeRizzo, U.S. veteran. Nice touch. Birdhouses. And it's a nice plot of land here. You see there's plenty of space to be utilized still. And again, you see the religious symbolism now, Celtic cross. Well, I don't think, well, there is a harp there. Also your Cape Cod representation. And again, you can see plots laid out. There's E. That's D. And right back there, the Cape Cod Rail Trail. So here we are at what's probably the most visible cemetery in Brewster, behind the Unitarian Universalist Meeting House Church. We'll get a shot of the front of the building too, but we're behind the cemetery, but we're on essentially Main Street, 6A in Brewster. But you can see already the ancient stones. The gate here says 1700, and even the site is labeled. Something you don't really see too often. This is essentially a cover. John Mayo died February 1, 1725. 70 years old. First representative to the General Court from the town of Harwich. This is naturally when Brewster didn't exist, and then Brewster later got incorporated into, or Brewster broke off from Harwich and became its own town. So 1725, that is something. We're back to etchings, no religious significance. I'm sure some of the small towns in Massachusetts have cemeteries that Very similar to cemeteries like these, the urban and suburban areas. Much larger cemeteries, much more modern, if you will. But this is 1700s right here. Main Street, 6A in Brewster. Church itself. And the Garden of Remembrance. Busy part of town here, but still manages to be a very tranquil spot. Pine Grove Cemetery. This is off Foster Road in Brewster. Sort of a mix of old, late 20th century and turn of the century. Very lonely tombstone. Warren, son of Ezekiel and Catherine Cahoon, died in 1862. All alone on this side. This is where the forgotten and ancient part comes to play. I'm sure there's nobody left to remember these people. Mr. David Barry died June 11th, 1854 at 79. But over on this side you get more modern, late 20th century plots. And again, a lot of American flags here. Come sit with Grandma and Grandpa by the sea they loved. Remember times shared, their love, and the value of the family. It's a very nice sentiment. I'm Jim Kane for LCTV, and I hope you enjoyed our excursion today through some spots you typically don't think of, especially when you're visiting Cape Cod for vacation, visiting friends and family. We went off the beaten path and saw remnants of history. Certainly an unusual broadcast, but we thank you for watching. I'm Jim Kane for LCTV, Channel 99.